Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today in this webinar called Design and Implementation of Practices for Critical Digital Competence, Progress of the CoDiCri project. It's our second webinar on this project, and my name is Victoria Marin, and I'm the principal investigator for this project, and together with the team from different Spanish and Colombian universities, we are here today to present our last progress in our project. So just a brief introduction in the project and the team. Here we have the members. We have the members of the team. So we have members from the University of Lleida. It's my case, but also here some of our colleagues present, Maika, Maria, and other colleagues from Spanish universities, Francesc and Sara from the Universitat Jaume I are here, but also Sara Villagrà from the Universitat de Valladolid. And some of our colleagues are not here, but they are also contributing to this project. And today it's, as I was saying before, the second webinar of our project. So I will just do a really brief introduction to the project, and then I will give the next steps from my colleagues to explain some of the parts that we have been doing and working in the last year. So for the first webinar, we work on the conceptual framework that we develop on critical digital competence, and we also explain broadly our project. So we can recommend you to watch the first webinar to know more about it. So the project is called Critical Digital Competence Towards Agency for Learning Through Open Educational Practices, with this acronym CoDiCri, and it's based on three different concepts or main axes. This is critical digital competence as a prerequisite and element of students' agency, and open educational practices as the way of working these concepts, coming from the open education movement. And we consider critical digital competence from the perspective of how citizens can engage critically, ethically, and responsibly with digital technologies. But we will also explain later that we develop a specific conceptualization from our project. Then about students' agency, we refer to the emphasis on the learner's capacity for intentional learning action beyond educational context, and also considered and really linked to lifelong learning. And in this case, students will use different kind of resources in terms of access and use, like personal resources, relational, contextual, and socioeconomic resources. And for open educational practices, we talk about collaborative practices that include creation, reuse, and use of open educational resources, but also pedagogical practices that include the use of participatory technologies. So this is mostly our basis or fundamentals of our project. And this is a project I think I didn't mention before, but it's a project funded by the Ministry of Science and Innovation in Spain, and it's a project of 3 years. September 2023, and that was the start, and we did our first webinar in the case of the English version in January 2025. And it's ending the project in the case of August 2026. So we are almost in the last months of our project. And here you find the main objective, which is design, implement, and validate a pedagogical reference framework for the development of open educational practices for higher education that contribute to the development of students' critical digital competence by explicitly promoting the exercise of agency for learning. So we are connecting these three different concepts in the case of developing a pedagogical reference framework. So we had also 3 specific objectives. So the first one was about establishing the basis of critical digital competence for agency for learning, and how it was connected with open education in higher education. And we also looked at the specific situation in the Spanish university system, which is where the project is based upon. This is a specific objective that is already finished, and the main result or main product of this project, of this objective, was presented in the first webinar of our project. Then we have been working in two other specific objectives in this, well, from the last time we did this webinar, which is design, develop, implement, and evaluate open educational practices that work on these other aspects, critical digital competence and agency in higher education. That was the specific objective 2. And specific objective 3 was create and validate design instruments based on the evidence obtained from the implemented practices that allow promoting, so these different elements that we talked in the specific objective 2. So these two specific objectives are the ones that we are right now working on. And we also are focusing, in this webinar, we are also focusing on results and processes that we have been working on in these two specific objectives. So now I will give the word to my colleague, and she will also explain a bit about really briefly about the first specific objective, the main product, and then how we work further after this.
Thank you, Victoria. In relation to the first objective of the project, during the initial phase, we conceptualized critical digital competence as the confident, analytical, ethical, safe, and responsible understanding and use of digital technologies as value-laden tools for learning, work, and participation in society, rather than neutral entities. Please, next slide. Okay. Also, in the webinar held in 2025, which Victoria has already mentioned, we present the conceptual framework of critical digital competence, which can be reviewed on the project website. In summary, this framework presents the elements, requirements, the justification, and ways and aims for developing critical digital competence through open educational practices to promote student agency. It should be noted that this framework doesn't present rigid dimensions, and that is, in certain cases, there may be some kind of overlapping. Each of the dimensions is defined in the interactive version of the published framework. It will also be noted that these conceptualizations, as well as the subdimensions, were generated from the systematic literature review, carried out in the first year, and are currently awaiting for publication, hopefully soon. To this end, in today's webinar, we will focus on presenting the indicators of the Competent Digital Competence Framework to understand how it's composed and how they have emerged. And then, in the second part of this webinar, we will focus on reporting on the design and implementation of the open educational practices that have emerged from the practice in different Spanish universities. Please. Next slide. Okay. To design and evaluate the open educational practices developed within the framework of the project, one of the actions focused on identifying the indicators of the critical digital competence framework, a tool that seeks to serve as a guide or orientation for the design of open educational practices that aim to work to a lesser or greater degree on critical digital competence, emphasizing agency for university student learning. Please, if you can move. Okay. For example, this slide shows part of the tool with the framework's level indicators. For all the indicators, level A refers to knowledge of the aspects indicated in the subdimension or its basic use with support. Level B requires advanced use without assistance in an autonomous manner. And level C covers the promotion, dissemination, encouragement, dynamization, and innovation with respect to its subdimension. Please, next slide. Okay. Talking about the dimensions that conforms the framework, the first one refers to critical thinking about the digital world and serves as a cross-cutting dimension that informs all others. It moves beyond basic tool usage to explore the power dynamics, economics, and ethics behind technology. The first subdimension, as you can see in the slide, demystifies the magical cloud by highlighting the physical infrastructure of the digital realm. In practice, this means leading efforts to educate others on the material cost of technology. The second subdimension centers on non-commercial and free alternatives aiming to dismantle the monopoly of big tech. Beyond mere awareness of these tools, it encourages the collective adoption of platforms that guarantee digital sovereignty. The third, furthermore, the framework addresses data extraction and the datification of life, fostering resistance to surveillance. At a more advanced level, it empowers individuals to engage in data activism, to expose and challenge systemic abuse. The power surveillance and culture subdimension examines media's role in reflecting or criticizing digital exploitation and promoting in an ultimate stance movements that challenge established power structures. Complementing this, the Council's ethics perspectives acts as a moral compass. At its most advanced level, it drives individuals to advocate for global well-being and sustainable future. The second dimension, information search, analysis and processing and communication, comprise four subdimensions that track a progression from basic to advanced skills. Informational retrieval runs from simple searches in reliable sources to the execution of organized, advanced, and search strategies. The second, the subdimension, interpretative analysis, moves from identifying main ideas to analyzing the power dynamics behind information production and fostering a critical critique of diverse messages. The third subdimension, multimodal critique, involves the critical evaluation of multimodal tests, progressing from content and accessibility reviews to deeper analysis that integrate academic, social, and political perspectives. The third one, synthesis and communication, focus on reworking and disseminating information across various formats, emphasizing appropriate and effective communication strategies. Okay. The next dimension refers to digital citizenship and responsibility and comprises 5 core components. The first one, etiquette, focus on ethics and respect within virtual environments. While it begins with basic curious interaction, its most advanced level involves the active promotion of empathy and community safety. Second subdimensions is related to digital civic participation and leverage technology to strengthen democracy. This ranges from reactive participation in public affairs to serving as a proactive driver of change who motivates others to engage. The third component, digital well-being, seeks a healthy balance between physical, mental, and technological life, culminating in the creation of collective well-being strategies. Fourth subdimension, rights and responsibilities, address privacy, security, and freedom of expression. At its peak, this involves advanced data protection and raising community awareness regarding mutual respect. Finally, the last subdimension in each dimension, environmental and social responsibility, focus on the sustainability on technological ecosystem, moving from individual awareness of one's digital footprint to optimizing resources and promoting informed decisions that minimize environmental aspects. Okay. This dimension, data literacy, is comprised of three main subdimensions. The first, understanding, the first one, please, if you can show. Okay, thank you. The first, understanding data and its implications, involves critical thinking regarding the origin and the meaning of information. At a foundational level, individuals recognize that data holds commercial and social value. At a more advanced level, they understand how corporations leverage personal data and develop strategies to ensure information serves the community's interest. The second subdimension, ethical collection, management, and sharing, begins with the ability to use basic tools to edit and share data according to ethical standards. And its most advanced application involves using digital repositories and online tools to publish data while actively promoting a culture of open data. Finally, the third subdimension address policies, decisions, and activism, focusing on governance and the power of data to transform our reality. This ranges from recognizing data's role in social reporting to participating in evidence-based decision-making and organizing campaigns to influence local data literacy policies. The last, no, it's not the last. The critical media production encompasses four main subdimensions. The first one relates to respect and the ethical management of digital authorship, focusing on intellectual property and valuing the work of others. At its most advanced level, it means individuals are able to foster a culture of ethics and respect for authorship within the environment. The second subdimension, creative multimodal production, involves creating content in various formats. At the highest level, it implies the ability to guide others in production content with professional impact. The third one, subdimension, is related to critical self-expression and counter-narratives. Emphasize challenging the status quo through artistic and digital content. At the most advanced level, this involves using one's identity and values to generate dialogue and promote social change. The last subdimension tackles remixing, that refers to the culture of mashups, combining existing elements to create something new. This ranges from simple combinations of two pieces of content to fashions that generate new narrative meanings, to actually promoting remixed culture as a form of original creation. The last subdimension has to do with critical evaluation of content that consists of three subdimensions related to critical source verification, which deals with the ability to check whether that what we read is real and who backs it up. In its most advanced uses, it relates to our ability to actively report misinformation and promote activism for ethical information. The second one, the analysis of bias and misinformation, seeks to uncover the hidden intentions and prejudices embedded within digital messages. At a sophisticated level or more advanced level, individuals recognize how misinformation impacts social cohesion and take proactive steps as blocking and reporting to mitigate the spread of harmful content. Furthermore, the distinction between human and synthetic content empowers individuals to differentiate between human author messages and those generated by artificial intelligence. At its peak, this competency involves not only personal detection, but the active sharing of ethical practices and detection strategies, fostering a more resilient and information community. And now it's time to give the floor to other colleagues.
Thank you. Well, taking all all above into consideration, we are going to explain our open educational practices we have designed and developed in our context. So we are going to explain these practices and its implementation in these academic years, which are 2024-25 and the current year. Well, our core framework is ACAD, I mean activity-centered analysis and design. The ACAD framework is a meta-theoretical framework which have been developed by Goodyear and colleagues. And also it has been developed with a toolkit in which has also participated researchers like Carvalho and German. Our aim is to design in this framework emergent activities, taking into account that the learning process is an emergent activity which is co-created and co-configured with our learners, our students. This is very related to these local and complex learning situations. So our approach is very practical. We have in this slide different aspects we have to consider, which is, for example, the set design, in which we can talk about the places, the materials, or, for example, the digital tools. Moreover, we have the second one, the epistemic design. We are talking about, for example, the structures of knowledge and the ways in which we are knowing. And in the third case, we have the social design, because we also have to design this social arrangement, how we create the groups or the aggregation of the students. So we're going to see the next. Thank you. So with this framework, we have designed new practices for the development of the critical digital competence of future teachers. We have in this toolkit, a CAT toolkit, 4 types of cards. The blue cards, which are the pedagogical and philosophy aspects. For example, the constructivism, among others. We also have the epistemic design. We mean the lectures, the case studies, or others like model building. And also we have the green cards, which is the set design we have mentioned. Finally, the orange cards are the social design, which is the special cards to decide if we are going to work with groups, pairs, or another type. So we have here how to implement the beforehand framework into a practical toolkit. This has been translated to Spanish in 2021 by Goodyear and others, and now we have implemented in different contexts, for example, in teacher education programs. We also have the online version. We have here the screenshot. We can also scan this QR to access to it, and it is an accessible way to use this toolkit. So this ACAD toolkit we have adapted to our CoDiCri project. So we have obtained a total of 43 green cards, having different material design. Also, we have obtained 26 orange cards related to the social interaction design. And also we have up to 60 yellow cards regarding the knowledge task. Here we have to differentiate the tasks performed by the learners and the task performed by the teachers. Finally, we obtained two blue cards based on the pedagogical approaches of ACAD. Well, we have developed different open educational practices in this project according to these dimensions which Sarah has mentioned. And according to literature, for example, Bailey et al., we have different approaches, dimensions into consideration in the design and implementation of these open educational practices, which are the pedagogical practice, which can be centered on the teacher or on the content, also centers on the student or on the process, and we have to include also a social justice practice. Here we have an example. For, if we combine the pedagogical part with social justice or centering with the teacher and the content, this author mentioned an example with Coursera, which is a tool with MOOCs to implement this combination of dimensions. Also, we have another example with Wikipedia, in which we develop more the part of the social justice practice and focusing on the process more than the teacher. Well, in these practices we have developed in the project, we have obtained different cases in this Spanish higher education context through different interviews we have carried out. For example, you can access in this link to access to all the open practices in Spanish, and we have here an example, different examples. For example, critical analysis of open educational resources. We have also developed, analyzed, the cases like developing blogs, taking these like cooperative portfolios to promote the collaboration abilities of the students. Another case can be the creation of open educational researchers or more active role of the students, like the edition of the Wikipedia. No? Also, the generation of pedagogical materials with AI, which is very, very present in our days and in our education. And finally, we have examples, also cases about the repositories of open educational resources. Using the CoDiCri ACAD, we have, which I have mentioned, we have developed different open educational practices. For example, we have here in the screen different, but we have designed a total of 11, and we have implemented more than 12 cases. So in total, we obtained a participation of more than 500 students of education and studies. Well, some examples can be the digital footprint, related also to these dimensions we mentioned before, and also there are different practices like the digital cartographies or this critical practice which take the question who decides what we watch on Netflix, no? The algorithms, the importance of this, the critical view of our consumerism. in the digital world. Also, we talk about the families, screens, and schools, which is a topic very important in our school context, and also these hidden biases of AI, gender biases, cultural biases, and other practical open educational practices we have developed is related to the personal learning environment through a critical view in how we are learning and consuming digital products, and how we can enhance our learning and development in our digital context. Finally, we have developed another practice, open practice, like the generative AI applied to education, for example, to design the curricula and the application of the activities to our context, educational context. Here we have an example, a specific example, which is the hidden biases of AI. Thank you. In which, as I have mentioned, we begin with an opening of our in our session to meet these challenges and the guided discussion to work our digital critical competence. Our objective is to explain these biases which are between through our tools which we use every day, and also we experimentate with the creation of images to have students as active learning in how these biases are happening in our days. Finally, we share the results, we discuss, and we reflect. The important part is to reflect and to acquire this individual critical reflection.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. In this next section, I'm going to present our ongoing evaluation. Specifically, I will cover the methodological approach, the instruments we used, and some of the challenges we have dealt in the process. Next slide, please. Let's start with the methodology for this research. We opt for a mixed methods approach. These combine different instruments such as the design of open educational practices themselves, focus groups with students, interview with teachers, and the analysis of the artifacts created by the students. We are applying all of these across the different universities, implementing the project. Okay, in the next slide, here you can see an example of an open educational practices, along with the template used to design it. Among the different aspects, we identify the element of critical digital competence addressed, the type of open educational practice, the pedagogical, social, material, and epistemological aspects according ACAD framework elements. And finally, some suggestion for its implementation, usually related to the teaching sequence carried out. Okay. Regarding the in-depth interviews with teachers and the students focus groups, both methods focus on analyzing their perceptions regarding the design and implementation of practices. I'm at the critical digital competency and agency. We also analyze the achievement of these goals, as well as the teachers and the students' initial conception about these aspects. And finally, in the next, another instrument we use is the analysis of the artifacts generated by the students. By this, we mean analyzing their reflection in different formats and the digital products themselves. For example, in our case at Jaume I University, we implement an activity related with digital photography and other using artificial intelligence. And using a form, we analyze and catalog these artifacts and their impact on the different competencies and dimensions. Okay, and the last, to wrap up the methodology, I like to mention some challenges we are currently facing. First, the diversity of practices analyzed. One type of practice is quite different from another, for instance, narrative versus creative practices. Second, the diversity of data. This combination of instruments, participants, and artifacts provides very rich information, but it also has a significant challenge for the analysis. And the last, the coding process itself, which naturally stems from the previous two challenges. And so let's move on the final section to transfer and conclusions. Victoria.
Thank you very much, Francesc, Sara, and Sara, for this really good overview of what we are doing right now. Since we worked on the conceptual framework from the last webinar, has been a while, and we have different products in this process. The indicators, I wanted to mention, the indicators are also translated into English, but the practices are not yet, neither our CoDiCri ACAD toolkit, but it will be, that it's something that is going to be translated into English. For the case of the open educational practices, we understand that we are contextualizing these practices in our context, but they can be adapted, translated, and reused in any other context and in any other language. So that should be no problem at all. So after talking about what we have been doing and what we are doing right now still, because we are still working on the collection and implementation and collection of data from the different implementations. It was mentioned that we have been doing implementations in the academic year 2024 to 25, the second semester, and then in this year we already finished the first semester in the Spanish context, but we are working now in the second semester, so it's expected to have some more implementations and data from this second semester, both from our colleagues in this team, but also from other external educators that are collaborating with the project as well. So that's something that is coming, but we cannot present results right now because we are still analyzing data. So what I'm going to talk about is what we are doing about knowledge transfer and what are these next steps in the project. And then we will finish, we will do some kind of wrap up for the webinar. We are really good in time, so I think we have time enough if there are still some question or some comment from the audience at some point later. So about the knowledge transfer and next steps. So as I was saying, we are working on the data analysis, and it's been a bit complicated. This really a challenge to work with all these types of data and the different coding, and also the practices. Practices are really different, and they are focusing on different critical digital competence subdimensions, the ones that were Sara was explaining before. So we are working on that, and that's why we cannot show any results right now. We are also working on this pedagogical reference framework that is the main object of this project. So the main objective has this point in mind to design, develop, and also evaluate and validate this pedagogical reference framework. And we have already worked on different instruments and products that are connected to this framework. So for example, the ACAD CoDiCri toolkit is part of this framework, but also the indicators, our conceptual framework on critical digital competence, and also, well, all these instruments that we have been presenting, this is all part of this framework, but we are still working on some elements like some instructions, some guidelines, some tips of how to use all this together to guide the educators that want to use this design kit for their own practices. So we are still trying to make some pack or some big, preparation of a set of things to help any educator to prepare to use this. And also, I mentioned before, we are doing everything in Spanish right now, but everything's expected to have an English version. Well, everything not, but this framework and specifically the toolkit is going to be also in English. And we are also doing the translation into other co-official languages in Spain. And we are also working on different training actions. So in the context of Spanish context, we are working on different courses for educators to help them to use the design kit. And as I said before, especially this toolkit that Sarah was presenting before. So we are doing that in our context, but we are also really happy to extend these kind of actions to other spaces. In fact, we are also working also with Latin America to do some actions in this sense. But of course, we are also really happy if you are also interested, someone in the audience or someone that is watching us in the video later, to do this kind of a transfer action, just to collaborate together, or even if you want to reuse some of the materials that are already available with a Creative Commons license. If you let us know, that will be great, because we are interested in this transfer. And we are also working on some actions with students. So we are doing some implementations and data collection in our universities, the ones that are involved in the project, and also with some external collaborators in Spain and Latin America. But we are also interested in working further with other students, other contexts, geographically and also disciplinary, because our focus right now is basically on teacher education. It was also mentioned before, but we think that what we are working on, critical digital competence, is a professional competence. So any other discipline is also really welcome. So any other students, although we will need to adapt some of the practices, but that's something that we are also working on in this context, and we are also interested in. And so just here, I also mentioned that, but if you are willing to apply the kit, it's the toolkit or any other instruments that we presented before, or the final pack that we will have, or any of these practices that are available on the website, even though they are in Spanish, but it's really easy to get everything translated in nowadays. So we are really happy to know about this interest and to know how you would like to apply this in your own context, and even collaborate with you if possible. So just to close this webinar, well, just a reminder, we are just at the end of the project. That's the third year. We are finishing in August. So we are really interested in this knowledge transfer in these last months. And we are also preparing different publications and different presentations for international conference to present our results in different phases. So that's what we are doing now, but I would like to share with you the website, the project website in the English version. So you have here the QR code, the website, and also our email contact in case you want to get in touch with us. Or if you want to do any question, let us know about any transfer action or something else. So I think until here we have our presentation. Thank you very much for joining us.